Okay, it's day 58, part two, and I just did some drill down to see if the current director, who the current director was at GSA, and it was a different picture here than Tim Otto Horne, which I thought was very interesting. The person listed, the executive listed, is not this picture. So that kind of, where there's smoke, there's fire. I kind of did a drill down on Tim Otto Horne. Found out that he went to Regis University, which is kind of a Jesuit university in Denver. I made the comment here on Twitter that Miami had a Navy intel program, which kind of is a feeder for CIA, and that Regis, I thought, had the same kind of role in Denver. Then he goes into working for GSA as a property manager. He goes up through the ranks as a property manager and then gets promoted to a project integrator. I made a little comment here about cutouts are us, not necessarily, but the CIA does do cutouts, so it doesn't rule him out as a potential CIA guy. Then he goes into human capital strategy implementation, which is, I don't know if that means SIU janitors being hired at government locations or not, but I'm just saying it's not out of the universe of possible solutions. And then he, speeding ticket, everybody gets those. And he then goes to work for this presidential transition team back in 2007, which this is a full year and a half, or a full almost 2 years in front of the election, which is I thought was odd. But as a communications coordinator, he had all the emails and so forth and texts way back then, so he was setting up accounts and so forth. He gets a job as the director of communications, which is a pretty big job. And then he starts work as a federal acquisition service. This is what I said in the last video. This is important because if he's federal acquisition service out in Denver, he's going to have Cheyenne Mountain. He's going to have the CIA. He's going to be doing acquisitions for the CIA. He's going to be doing, I believe, Northcom is in Boulder, not Boulder, Cheyenne Mountain, down Lamborn's. So a lot of stuff. I think NORAD's there. Strategic Air Command. No, Stratcom is in Nebraska. But anyway, I think Northcom is there. So a pretty big role. Now, well, I won't say about Doug Lamborn, who I thought I saw this guy. That's why it really jumped off the page at me in Washington D.C. talking to Doug Lamborn. But I don't know if that's true or not. So I want to take that back. But anyway, here's his emails and so forth. And then he goes to work for the transition team. He starts as a federal transition coordinator in 2016 for a campaign, again, way early, February 2016. This has got to be Hillary again. Hillary's expected to obviously win the election. So he's doing all the setup for the transition teams and so forth, and then some property records and so forth. And then he leaves the transition team. Now, I thought he left in January, so he probably wasn't fired, but he did leave the team. And I just thought, if I was Bob Mueller, or really Andy McCabe, I would go to this guy. JTTF in the FBI is a CIA project. I would go to a CIA buddy if he is CIA. I'm not saying he's CIA. But when I see this sort of thing, this is the guy who is listed on the GSA site, and it says Tim Otto Horne is the acting director. He is the acting director of GSA. Now, he also has a stint at King, when he leaves government with King Pharmaceuticals. Now, if it was me, if I was the king and I was going to run King Pharmaceuticals, what I would do, this is just me, if I was an Awan, my dad owns opium fields or opium fields in Sialkot, and he owns a reprocessing pilling place in Faisalabad. If I had that, if I had experience working at the Port of Qasim, I would meet up with a guy who knows all about Fort Belvoir, because that's the Defense Logistics Agency, and within the Defense Logistics Agency is food and drug. So there I am at the,
Okay, this is day 343, part 3. This is the entrance to, used to be Fort Belvoir. Now it's the Jackson Abbott Wildlife Refuge, and I'll just show you.
Okay, and I go to all these places, and I talk about how important Fort Belvoir is going to be to this whole situation. You'll see it a lot. You can just Google Fort Belvoir, and you'll see all the different places I go to. There's the entrance. And then there's this little park. If I was trying to sell somebody pink cocaine, this is right next to where Jaquea lived. to this entrance right here. I would definitely do the pink cocaine right there at the entrance. You can see where it is on the map down here, where it's kind of near Smuggler's Cove. If I was, well, let's do a couple more. Here's Fort Belvoir Defense Logistics Agency for Food and Drug. If I wanted to be the king of pharmaceuticals, and I'm not saying this is right off Mount Vernon, I'm going right to all the spots where this story is heading, which is really uncanny. But I believe this is the solution to the test. I think there's a connection here. And I'm saying again, if you had Tim Horne and you had his laptop, and let's say he came over to Sprayer, you could, while he's having fun at Sprayer, maybe just, watching TV or whatever, you could be syncing up to his laptop if you had a Wi-Fi. And he could be, I think he's a potential target for the Awans. I'll just say it right now. I think he's a potential target. Have you ever, Tim Otto Horne, have you ever been to Fort Belvoir? Have you ever been to Fort Belvoir DLA? Have you ever done business with Fort Belvoir DLA Food and Drug? Have you ever been to Sprayer? I just think he's a potential victim, and I want to send out the warning to him today that he may be a victim of the Awans.